So, well, we can do a short, so we don't run so much over. Talk about Argentina's history. It's also very similar to Venezuela's. We've taken out 13 zeros in total, right? So Argentina is a beautiful country. I know, has anybody here been to Argentina? Not yet.
I've been 8 times.
8 times. All right.
I'm
We get
going
it fun.
in November.
Awesome. Oh, there's a Bitcoin. Wanna come?
Huh?
There's a Bitcoin conference.
In November?
Yes. I think it's November 1st or so.
Anyway, no, but I would love to meet as many Bitcoiners as I can.
Okay. Yeah, many will be there by that time. So yeah, it's famous for barbecues, tango, beautiful landscapes. It's a very big country in the south, right? So let's see, it's located at the tip of America in the south. And I'm gonna do a recount of all the different currencies we've been destroying through the years. So the first one was peso moneda corriente, which was a time where Argentina was still like organizing itself. After the Declaration of Independence, we started fighting each other, also happened in the US, right? Between the centralists and the decentralists, like Unitarians and Federalists, right? So there was somewhat monetary freedom sometimes there were dictators, but a lot of currency, coins from different countries circulated, and there will be private monies from banks as well, right? But then the country got together in shape, and by 1880 they did the first unified currency, which for some periods had gold backing, and whenever there was a crisis they would take out the gold backing, but this one was the longest lasting one. Between the first one I show you and this one, they divided by 25. So 25 pesos of the first one became 1 peso of this one. Then in 1935 we had the first central bank, also the first income tax. They came together, right? Like just in the United States. The income tax was an emergency tax that only lasts 10 years, and every 10 years they renew it, right? So constant emergency. In 1971, they took out 2 zeros from this currency, and it became 1 peso ley. Ley is law, right? I have it here. I'll search for it. I will show you the bills, and later you can pass it around. So this is a peso ley, right? Now I'm holding a 1,000 pesos ley, but this one got up to 1 million peso note, right? And in the year 83, they replaced it with the peso argentino, and they took out 4 zeros, right? So 10,000 of peso leys became 1 peso argentino. It's like more patriotic. But this one we destroyed in 2 years, from 83 to 85. Only 2 years to destroy a currency, right? And I was born in 85. So yeah, it got up to 1 million peso notes, right? But in 85, and the president made this Austral plan. Austral comes from the south. And at the beginning of 85, the Austral was more worthy than a dollar. 83 cents of an Austral bought you a dollar. But by 89, we were in hyperinflation. I know, Fer, if you want to tell any story about hyperinflation in Argentina.
Well, when I went to a supermarket in 99, I saw 5 times change the prices in a day.
Wow. For the same product.
I have 14 that's period, and I saw that and say, wow.
Wow.
Did you experience any other hyperinflation besides 89? Si sufriste otra hiperinflación. Aparte.
The crisis of 2002.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it now.
And
But
then-
before that, do you remember anything?
No.
Oh, okay. You were too young. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was too young for the 89 hyperinflation. So the president that did this currency abandoned office 6 months in advance, called elections in advance, and left the hot potato to the next one. And so the next one, at first, I mean, they had hyperinflation, and the exchange rate between dollar and peso went all the way. I don't have it here. Hold on. Oh yes, I have it here. It went all the way to 10,000 Australias for a dollar. So from 83 cents to 10,000 in 7 years, right? And then they got this Minister of Economics called Cavallo, who got the idea to make peso a stable coin because it was sort of like tether, right? Because he proposed, okay, I'm going to print a peso only if I have a dollar saved in the central bank, right? Or treasury bills or whatever. And it was called peso convertible, convertible peso. And here we have one example that is number 58,000. So they had only printed $58,000 when this was printed. So yeah, this is the only period when Argentina had 10 years of practically no inflation. Yes.
So you said they printed 58,000 and they were backed by dollars. So you're saying that the whole government had 58,000?
No. When that bill in particular was printed, because it's one of the first ones.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah.
Sorry, Ariel. It was the same time when the government implemented the corralito.
We are getting there. So
So you had 10 years of essential stability because they had linked, because as you said, they made the peso essentially a stable coin linked to dollar.
exactly. So I noticed this when I started telling people in Germany our story, and I started telling them, Argentina from so let me recount a few of the political situation. So we had a sort of democracy at first because it was male. First it was male, with high earners or important people, then all the males, then the women, right? But by 1930 we had the first military coups and military governments, and one of the most populous military coups was by Perón. Perón was fascinated with Mussolini and Hitler because he studied in Italy. But the wife of Perón, who was a poor girl from the country lands, also, she was, how to call her? Well, doesn't matter. So,
Evita, right?
yes, Evita. You can see the musical by Madonna. And she convinced him to, no, you have to run for elections, get elected, the people will elect you. Because Perón had been Minister of Labor, and he noticed, it's good to be with the unions. And so, he ran as friends of the unions. He won, and then he started nationalizing everything. So he nationalized the central bank. The railroads were mostly British, right? So you guys invested heavily in Argentina, in the railroads, in the meat packers, and salting the meat as well. So the meat would come from Argentina to here. The telephone lines. Actually, I'm going to show you something I have here. Hold on. Where is my... This is what my father had to study. Happy children, right? Niños felices. So it says birds and flowers, right? So it says the children are happy in such a nice school and happy, right? The government of the General Peron creates one school per day.
It was like the government propaganda.
Yeah. Federico is really happy. He usually says, "How happy are the children of this country?" And the other guy says, "Because we are protected by General Peron," answers one of his friends. So it was all like this, right? There will be pictures of Peron and Evita, and they would have to sing the Peronist march every day, every morning. So that's Evita, right? So they're talking about toys. Oh, I have an airplane, and I wouldn't change it for anything. It was given to me by Evita. Right? so yeah, it was a total brainwash. He was like 6 years old, right? He kept this book, right? And so yeah, you can imagine what it was like. They also introduced spies. I don't know in Venezuela you had like spies that every square had a woman. That she's like the square spy, so she has to spy on all the neighbors. You have that?
That belong to the government party. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how Argentina started going down. And well, there was a military coup to take Perón out. That one in particular was more classical liberal or I know conservatives. They were ousted again, but many military governments. So back and forth between democracy and so on, and economic disaster going down. And I told people, like, for example, if you wanted to get a phone line, you would have to wait between 10 and 20 years to get a new phone line from the state. So if a house had a phone line, it would be worth twice a house without a phone line, right? And in the 60s, they started producing cars inside of Argentina, and we had the same cars through the 60s, 70s, 80s until like 92. So it was a Ford Falcon, Peugeot 504, Fiat. Which cars did we have?
137, 47, 147.
Yeah, but
Fiat,
yeah, Fiat 600.
Fiat Europa.
Yeah. So yeah, the same cars for 30 years. They with minor changes. There were no importations of goods from outside, and so I noticed when I told this story to the Germans, I said, "Oh my God, I'm describing a Soviet country. Like, where's the difference, right?" So, thankfully, well, the Berlin Wall fell down, and this government was more like open-minded, pro-open in Argentina. They privatized all the state-run companies, and they did this, and they allowed importation for the first time. So the first cars to come to Argentina were in '92, right? The first outside cars. There were very, very few, like perhaps if an embassy had a Mercedes, then the embassy would sell it later and somebody could have a Mercedes, but that was it. So yeah, I lived through the 90s, so I was a little kid, and I remember prices not changing. Like a hamburger in McDonald's, a cheeseburger was $1, $1. It stayed the same for the whole time. A bus drive, taking the bus was like 75 or 80 cents. It remained like that. Yeah, a taxi was, the first charge was 1.12, didn't change. Meat was inexpensive, like $5 per kilo, but we had a crisis in 2001. The president that did this, he had to leave office in '99. But the next president, the first thing he did was to raise taxes. And we couldn't print the pesos. If we didn't have the dollars, we couldn't print them. that was one of the main issues that took us to the crisis.
It was Carlos Menem.
Carlos Menem was the president. Yes, he was he had an homenage like 2 days ago in Argentina. So when I do all the math, similar to the math you did, right? So let's say in 1970, your grandfather was the richest Argentine in Argentina, and he had 10 trillion pesos, moneda nacional. Yeah, he sold all his farms, factories, real estate, gold and silver, whatever, bought peso moneda nacional. Eventually, every government would tell him, let's change this, right? And it would have become 1 peso. That in the 90s, it was worth $1, this coin, but now it's worth less than a penny, right?
Yeah.
So all your entire life work would go vanish, destroyed, sacked by the state, right? So let's talk about the crisis someone mentioned here. So the next president was Fernando de la Rúa. I'm not sure if I have a photo there, perhaps I show it later. He was like a Joe Biden. He was an old man. He got lost on stage, right? And he didn't know where to go. We were in a recession, and he decided first thing to do, raise taxes, right? So Argentina was really expensive in dollars. We didn't have much tourism because it was really expensive for us. It was cheap to go to the United States. Like if we went to Miami, we would be, oh, how cheap this is. Like we can buy twice as much or whatever, right? So people, yeah, Argentinians flew all around.
Because, sorry, Ariel, at that time it was like 1 peso equal 1 USD.
Yes, exactly. But I remember I was like 15 years old, and when we turned on the TV, they would tell us the temperature for the day of the weather report, and they would also quote us the country risk, right, in the morning. They would tell us, oh, today the country risk is 430. Oh, how high, right? The next day, oh no, the country risk is 450. Now it's 465. Now it's 478, right?
What the country
Risk is. So country risk is the rate, the interest rate, over what the base interest rate of a country-free risk is, like the USA.
Okay.
So the treasury bill of the USA, let's say it's 2.5, right now it's 5%, right? So it's 5%. So if you have a 500 country risk, you have to add 5 to 5, you get 10%, right? So they would quote it every day, and it was like a measurement of how soon the Armageddon was coming, or the doomsday, because it meant that at a certain number, the interest payments of the debt would get so big that Argentina was not going to be able to pay them, right? So Argentina was about to default. So the Joe Biden, called Fernando de la Rúa, he asked to Cavallo, the previous Minister of Economy, to come to help him, and he had a brilliant idea. First, for example, they imposed on the banks that the banks needed to invest more heavily into Argentine bonds. So the government would have money, right? And there was one, the largest Argentine bank, Galicia, decided to go even further than what was legally required. Perhaps they were in cahoots with the government, right? Who knows? Or they did a favor to the government. So they took people's money, put it into Argentine bonds. But Argentina was going to default. So all the savings of all the people was going to go belly up. So then they had a brilliant idea of doing a corralito, which means little coral, right? I think this name was put by the journalist, but it stuck, right? And it meant that they announced on a Monday that you were not able to withdraw your money from the banks, right? You could spend it, like credit card, debit card, check, wire transfer, but not take it out. They put a cap of only, I mean, nowadays it seems high for Argentines, but it was 250 pesos per week, or $250 per week, right? But let's say if you had $50,000 in the bank, it was all inside of the bank. So then a few curious things started to happen. I was a curious teenager, right? So first I saw, well, people that would risk it and, for example, accept a wire transfer from you, make a cut, and give you the cash. So let's say you wire me 100,000 pesos inside of the banking system, and I give you 70,000 pesos in cash. That, for me, that was fascinating, right? Or $70,000. Also, for example, my father risked it. We used to have an art gallery. He sold a painting that was like $60,000, right? And we were like, why take a $60,000 transaction in if you don't know if you will have it? And there were some Argentines that went to the justice system and interposed an habeas something that was like an expedited judicial ruling that should come in like 48 hours or a week, something like that, right? And there was a judge, then if you got selected, they do like a lottery of judges. If you get this judge selected, he rules in favor of every saver that comes to this judge, right? So my father, I know, he got lucky or whatever. He got this judge, he got a warrant, and we had to go to the bank with a warrant. And just in case, you can also like ask the local policeman to come, right? And the bank would give you the money, right? And so he was able to withdraw the money from the banks, but very few people were able to withdraw the money. So they started rioting. These are like thief banks, give us back our dollars, right? Give us back our dollars. All people had all their savings in them, hitting the banks. They were saying there's no justice, there's no work, there is no economic plan, there's no banks, there's no dollars, no pesos. What we do have are thieves, chorros. Perhaps, let's see, I'll show you some videos, hold on.
The workarounds that people use when the money breaks, it's variants of prison currencies. When you can't move your money or access it, and what we're seeing now already, the EU is introducing a maximum of allowable 3,000 euros in cash transactions, and anything beyond that has to be banking. I very much feel that we are sitting here complacently in our warming water, as the fires are being increasing underneath us, or the pincer movement is slowly.
4.600.
This is Fernando's neighborhood. So this is the looting that started to happen.
Un grupo de 300 personas arrasó
December 2001.
ubicado en la avenida Gaona al 4600. Sin presencia policial, el local de reducidas dimensiones fue vaciado en pocos minutos. Los manifestantes se llevaron todo tipo de mercadería y hasta el árbol de Navidad
Old
que
cars.
adornaba el comercio ante la
This
desesperación.
became famous, the Chinese owner of the shop. You're seeing the Christmas tree from the shop. There's no police. They took out everything.
Señor, ¿qué es lo que se lleva?
Carne y mercadería, porque no tengo para comer.
I don't have what to eat.
Enfermo. Tengo ya el chivo y no puedo laburar, tengo esta porquería.
¿Qué hijo?
Tengo 4 hijos.
4 children.
No de nada. Y vamos a hacer más todavía. Porque esto falta. El pueblo si no le pone las pilas, pero vamos a hacer. Vamos a hacer
I
peor.
don't know.
Señora, ¿qué es lo que se lleva? Productos de limpieza y qué más. Cosa de
There, I couldn't find the mouse. So, well, they were looting all around. So the president, on a Thursday, at 20 hours, he decided to make a national address and tell people, I'm gonna put a curfew, like a military curfew. I'm gonna suspend the constitutional rights from 8 p.m. till, I don't know, like 6 a.m., right? So he sent this out. So the next day, on the Friday, people rioted even more, right? So they went to the main square to riot, and he took out the horses, the police on horses, whatever. There were some clashes, and 20 people were killed that day, December 20th of that day. So then we saw, see if we find it. Hold on. There's the mouse. Let's see, this is the president, right? I think it's this one, not sure. Oh, this is not the video. It's always hard to find the videos. This one, right? Then we saw this image, right? The helicopter landing on the roof of the presidential palace, and he escaping through the roof and flying off, right? He resigned, the people were on the square, and we didn't have a vice president. So the country was without president because the vice president had resigned 6 months prior, right? So he only lasted 2 years in power. So after that,
Nadie podrá mover plata en efectivo por más de 1.000 pesos por mes.
yeah. So after that, they went through what the constitution says, and it's okay. The next one is the head of the Senate, right?
Acceder a un salario mínimo vital y móvil. Por todo concepto será fijado en 3.000 pesos. A los funcionarios públicos del poder. Deuda externa. No siento que sea justo definir a la llamada deuda externa argentina como el endeudamiento contraído por el Estado argentino frente a los acreedores extranjeros que merezcan definir nuestra posición con la frase debemos honrar los compromisos asumidos. La deuda externa argentina se ha venido pagando sin cumplirse con el requisito constitucional que dice que es atributo del Congreso arreglar el pago de la deuda externa interior.
This was his opening speech when he got accepted as president to the Congress. So he started talking about the external debt.
A tomar el toro por las astas. Vamos a hablar de la deuda externa. En primer lugar, anuncio que el Estado argentino suspenderá el pago de la deuda externa.
So he announces default, that we're not going to pay any of our debts. And we got a standing ovation from all the deputies and senators. Like if we had won the World Cup, right? Now they're going to start cheering for Argentina. Yeah, I'm a genius. I'm a badass. Yeah. Argentina, Argentina, Argentina. So he only lasted 2 weeks in power, right? And he even wrote a book about his works in 2 weeks in power, right? So then he resigned, and like in a few hours, we had like 2 or 3 more presidents. So I know that it was 5 presidents in 2 weeks, right? Yes.
Stable.
Yeah, stable, super stable, super good. Until we got the leading opposition leader, like he ran for president in the previous election. Where's the mouse? I always can't find the mouse. So
Yeah, we had something similar here the last year. Not at that rate, but with Liz Truss and all that happened.
They seem to be going through prime ministers faster and faster and faster.
Not like
Just
wait for the helicopters on the roof, you know.
And none of them are elected.
No.
UK Prime
Shit,
Minister.
they're Irish.
Van a ser respetadas.
Not elected.
Point.
Saving point.
Helen, how are we doing with time?
Right. What we have completely lost. We have completely lost everything, and I haven't reined it in because this is so interesting, and I think new and of value to everyone here. We did in the afternoon session have an hour set aside to take out in case this happens, which we suspected it might. So we have cancelled the debunking Bitcoin myths session, and we've got now more time to do this. Regarding the other speakers, we might, Gary, it looks as though we'll have you as the first speaker after lunch then, and we'll just do it that way. But if everyone agrees, this is the kind of opportunity that we so rarely get, and these guys are here with first-hand accounts of this, and I think that's the right call.
Well, because something similar has been happening in Venezuela, yeah. It's the same. Looting, protest, or, the streets.
it's what happens when money dies, right? Or fails.
It's Latin America.
Yeah, South America. And when money fails, it's not only economic collapse, it's like politics, education, social services, everything collapses. Because everything is managed for the same state, and the state manages the fiat money like it's commodity,
Right. I'm going to show you the next president, a few seconds. He also, inaugural address, people still had their money trapped inside of the banking system. And so some people had peso bank accounts and some other people had dollar bank accounts. And so he had this to say.
Van a ser respetadas las monedas en que hicieron sus depósitos. El que depositó dólares recibirá dólares. El que depositó pesos recibirá pesos.
So this also became famous because a few weeks later, whoever deposited dollars didn't get dollars, they got pesos, right? And also, yeah, something interesting that happened before the devaluation of this whole crisis was that in my father's shop, I noticed that a guy used to come and he would take dollars from my father and he would give him 15% extra pesos, right? And that was really curious for me because for the last 10 years I've been experiencing one-to-one, right? And why would this guy pay 15% extra when the newspapers and the media, everybody was still talking about one-to-one, right? And so my father explained to me, no, he's a little tree. He's an arbolito, a little tree. A little tree is people that used to work in the street and shout cambio, cambio, exchange, right? They get clients to exchange money in the black market. So non-KYC, exactly. So they resurfaced, right? After 10 years of non-work, the little trees resurfaced and they would do a delivery, so they would come to your place, right? So yeah, that for me was also fascinating. So these presidents, they ended convertibility, so they finished this one-to-one backing, and immediately the peso went to 4 pesos to a dollar, like in a few days, like in 2 or 3 days, right? I remember that cheeseburger went to 2 pesos immediately, right? So now it was worth 50 cents of a dollar, right? But what this big head president gave the people was 1.4 pesos for every dollar. So if you had $100,000 in the bank account, you would get 140,000 pesos. But if you wanted to get dollars back, you would have to the market, pay 4 to 1. So you would get like $35,000. So you lost 65% of all your money, right?
Ariel, would this be a good time for people to grab a coffee,
Yeah,
have
sure.
a break, and then after that we'll come back and have a discussion, because I can imagine that people have a
Yeah,
lot
let's
of
do
questions
coffee break.
for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, then we do questions and.
yeah. Have you finished is this a good time? Or do you have any more videos to show?
No more videos. Yeah, it's just talking about current situation, but
Right.
I mean,
Okay.